Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and today I'm going to be showing y'all the best gear setup for most of the schools for PvP, because let's be real, it's all the same. And for the other two, I'll go over what the small differences are. So for now, let's take a look at the type of stats that you want. So on this little graphic here up on screen, these are the stats that you want to go for, depending on your school. Now, obviously you don't want like 57 accuracy, for example. That is way over what you need. But for the stuff like pierce, damage, resist, I think are the only three that really matter. You want to get those while also maintaining perfect accuracy and perfect power pip chance. Now, this is how you do that. Before, it was possible, at least, to get to all of the, like offensive damage caps, like your pierce and damage, while also like getting close to perfect accuracy and max pips. But now, with the Wallaru Wastelander pack, you can have perfect accuracy and pips and perfect, damage and pierce, like for most schools, I'm pretty sure. So let's go over the gear. So for 5 out of the 7 schools, you want the Wastelander's hat. This because it gives a power pin and shads, damage, pierce, accuracy, and pip chance. The only stat that this insane item gives up is crit block. And depending on the school, you might not even need crit block. Like if you're a myth or a fire, for example, you do not need crit block. You are playing super duper aggro, and you don't need crit block, so it's not even something you need to worry about. So the Wastelander hat, by far the best. Second place, far away in second place, is the Stalker hats. And the reason why these are so far away in second place is because they give up crit, and which, crit's not really a stat that matters too much, but you give up pip chance, pierce, and damage, like quite a bit of that, and as well as the power pin. And shield pins don't really count for too much at the moment. You can still get like a crit block pin, but it's not really going to do too much for you, to be completely honest. And it's a good piece of gear if you don't have anything else. But I mean, if you use it, you could lose perfect pips, you could lose perfect pierce, perfect damage, that type of deal. So the Stalker hats are good in their own right, but only use these if you just don't have the Wastelander hat. So yeah, that's sort of a rule of thumb there. So that is all for the hat. The hat is really the most important piece that you need to get from a pack, really. And I hate that it even has to come from a pack at all, but that's just the meta we're in. It is what it is. So there is that. And it also gives you like a neat little copy of your school's dispel, so that's nice too. So let's move on to the robes after I steal 3 Mistwood from Sophia Iceflower, who is much lower level than me and probably needs it more. So let's look at the robes. For most schools, who now? This is the one that you want. This is our first piece of Crying Sky raid gear, and the Crying Sky raid, obviously, very hard content. It's the hardest content in the game, and you can see why. It's like compared to Mire, compared to Nullity, right? Like Hunhao is the one you want, because it gives everything except for accuracy, and the hat and boots and like a triangle socket, that is where you make up the accuracy. So yeah. And then it gives 2 power pins, which makes it really good for off schooling. You can use like Minotaurs, Tritons, that type of deal a lot more consistently. Like you won't have to worry about fizzling, because the gear template gives you these 2 power pins. It's really good for that. And then it also gives you 1 max tier copy of your rank 6 spell. For Myth, it's Stone Colossus. And then for some schools, this matters more than others. Like Fires can use their Elephant, Deaths can use their Spell and Wraith if they're going for that type of strat. You get the idea. You can get 7 copies of a spell like this, which is pretty insane. So the Hunhao robe is the one you want for most schools. If you're like a storm, and honestly I should cover these. If you're a storm, you want a hat that gives a shield pin. The burrower hat will, like, if you can give up accuracy, the burrower hat is going to give you slightly more damage than the stalker hat. So I'd recommend it personally, but to each their own. And yeah, you want those, if you're a lifer storm, you want the shield pins for the outgoing healing boost, so that way you can heal better, that type of deal. Or if you're a storm and you just want to go all in and not care about healing at all, you can go ahead and use the Wastelander hat. But yeah, if you're a storm, you don't want the Hunhao robe, you want something that gives accuracy, and shads. It's like shads are the main thing here, because the meta that we're in, I don't know if it's intentional or not. Ratbeard doesn't even know what's going on either. I talked to him a bit ago about it. And what's going on here is the more shad pieces that you have compared to your opponent, like if you're running 4-piece shad and your opponent's running 3-piece, you might get your first shad on round, let's say 6. Your opponent will not get their first shad until round 8-ish. And that might not seem like a big difference, but you keep compounding that. It'll take 6 rounds for you to get a shad, and it'll take 7 to 8 for your opponent to get a shad if you have 4-piece and they have 3-piece. So that adds up over time. So shads are the most important stat to have on a robe. Otherwise, I would recommend the Mire robe, like, easily, just because you don't even have to worry about accuracy, and then you can run this, but yeah, you're losing shads by running this, and that is a big no-no in this meta today. So the Hunhao robe is what you want. It gives a lot of pip chance, a lot of resist, a lot of damage, a lot of shads, a lot of pierce, as well as giving crit block and critical rating. So this is what you want. This is really what you want. The Hunhao robe. And then, of course, the Mire and Nullity robes, they aren't good for dual schooling because you can fizzle. So how about that? For the boots, this is probably the most infamous piece, the Xibalba boots for most schools. Do you mind? But the Xibalba boots, you could see them. It's like, in comparison to a piece like the Burrower boots, which are also pretty good, but I mean, look at them, right? And then like the Eon boots, even the Hunhao boots. This right here, the Xibalba Heavenly boots, it'll vary depending on school, but the Xibalba boots for 5 out of 7 schools, this is the best piece because it gives you quite a bit of health, a lot of res. It gives you some accuracy, so you make up for what you lose on your robe. It gives pierce, like to say the least. That's pretty good. And then crit rating, a lot of damage, like 42 is pretty insane for myth. And then shads and block. The Xibalba template, the Xibalba boots template, is the Dream Reaver boots template, but with a little more resist, and instead of power pip chance, it gives shads. But of course, you make up some of your power pip chance here, other power pip chance here, and we'll get to this. But yeah, the Xibalba boots, definitely the best by far. It also gives you a nice little school aura, which is kind of nice. And then if you're a storm or a life, something with the shield pin is nice if you're going for heals. So would recommend that. For the wand, this is where it can depend a little bit. If your school needs pip conversion, like if you're an ice or a life or a balance, then you're going to want the Hunhao wand as opposed to the Xibalba wand. But if you don't need P-Serve, like myth, death, fire, storm, then the Xibalba wand is the one that you want, because for some setups, this is going to be what gets you to perfect accuracy. And obviously, the other stats are insane. I mean, for the Myth Wand, which is technically not a damage school, it gets 28 damage and 10 pierce. Let that sink in. But the main allure to these is that they give shad rating, and you can't really find a better wand that gives shad rating. There just aren't that many options to choose from. There's some pack wands that could give you some here and there, but they just aren't good. They just aren't good. And the Xibalba wand, this is the one that you want by far, or the Hunhao wand if your school needs pip conserve, like if you're an ice or a life or a balance, and then the dex, that'll matter as well once we get to those. So this is our third piece of raid gear. Ain't that fun? For the Fames, this is our first piece of free-to-play gear, reasonably free-to-play gear at least, and that is the Dream Reaver of Fame. And this is important because it gives a square socket for, you know, an extra bunch of health, as well as all of that damage, all of that pip chance, all of that health, and a little bit of crit block to go along with it. So this is a pretty good piece. And before, you know, you might have needed another triangle slot for accuracy or pip chance, but with this setup for most schools, you don't need that. It's you can afford to run this extra square socket for a lot more health, which is important in the grand scheme of things. So definitely do that. And then honestly, while we're on that topic, if you can maintain max accuracy without the Xibalba wand, then it might be advisable to go to the level 160 version, just for that extra health that you can get. But it's all up to you, and make sure your setup doesn't lose too much by running it. So there is that as well. For the amulet, this, yeah, the Hunhao amulet for our fourth piece of raid gear. The Hunhao amulet is the best. It gives 2% more res, and then it also gives a little bit more pip conversion, and I mean, that's important, as I've been saying for a while. So the Hunhao amulet, definitely the best, but Reaver is comparable, so if you don't have the Hunhao amulet, you can get away with Reaver. It's mostly just the robes, boots, and wands that you can't get away with having non-raid gear. But once you get into the accessories, it's not so bad. Anyway, where was I? Right, the Hunhao amulet. This, and like just so we're clear, all of the circle sockets on these setups are going to be for pierce jewels. The 60%, that would be nuts. 6% pierce jewels. And then for the triangle, it depends on if your school can afford to run a 7%. If not, then you run a 16% to your school, and just don't worry about dual schooling. you can let your power pins that you get from your clothes handle all that. But yeah, that's what you do for the amulet. And then for the ring, Skyfarers, 9 times out of 10. I'm pretty sure Balance can get away with the Hunhao ring, but you need something that gives a lot of pip chance. And then for Storm and Life, again, the two schools that I keep talking about with Echoing Healing, the Skyfarer ring is the option because it gives some outgoing as well as all of its damage, and it's just very, very useful. But the main reason why people use the Skyfarer ring as opposed to stuff like the Reaver ring, which gives, in Myth's case, 3% more damage, is because of the pip chance. That's an extra 4% compared to the Reaver for pretty much every school. And yeah, this, if you even though you're not using the Reaver ring, and this ring gives 3% less damage, as a Myth at least, you can still hit the damage cap by running this, which is crazy. So the 23% pip chance that you get from the Skyfarer ring, and this varies across other schools. It could be like 22, I think, for fire, and then 24, 25 for life, I think. But yeah, this is by far the ring to go for. You want this. You want this. It gives way, way, way too much pip chance to pass up. And if you don't use it, like say you have like the Nullity ring, for example, it'll give you less pip chance. And that could bring it down to like 99, 98, and then you can fail pivot a pivotal moment, and you don't want that happening. So there's that. And then for the pet, this is what I use just on the Myth because the extra 3 pierce gets me to the pierce cap. But for most schools, you're going to want a triple double mighty because it's a good chance that you're going to hit your pierce cap, or at least get close enough to it to where like a pierce talent might not, like it'll be negligible. But a triple double mighty, this is what you want for most other schools, just because you get that little bit of extra damage, that little extra push, and then your Pierce Jewels are going to get you all the way to your Pierce Cap. But I actually should mention, if you're on a P-Serve school, it is recommended to have Breaker, be an Armor Breaker, obviously, for the extra 4 Pierce. Just because the deck gets a little finicky, but you'll see what's going on with that. But otherwise, Triple Double is a good baseline. It gets you to the damage cap nicely enough. For the mounts, this depends on the school. I tend to use the Crystal Unicorn on the schools where I am just barely short on accuracy with all of the other stuff. And then the Clockwork Courser is good if you do have max accuracy and pips. And then the Clockwork Courser will get you 2 extra Pierce, that type of deal. And then the Rock, which gives 3 extra pip chance, can be useful if you need that. So I used the Rock for a little while when I was still using the Stalker hat, but I don't anymore. I use the Crystal Unicorn. So that is what's going on with the mounts. It's all stat boosted mounts. If you don't have them, tough. That's kind of just how it is. And then for the decks. For the non-P-Serve schools, Fire, Myth, Storm, and Death, you want the Hoon Hao deck. Reaver deck works too, but Hoon Hao is nice because it gives you a lore spell or event spell that is at its max tier, which it can be pretty nice. So just to have an extra copy of that. So yeah, this is definitely the move. It gives the most health out of all of between this and the Reaver deck, and it gives the circle slot my fault, and that's where you get your last 6 Pierce. Socket that up, you're good. But it also gives the most Arch Mastery rating out of all of the circle decks, so that is another thing that you want. You can kind of slow down your opponent's school pip gain if they don't have this, but you know how it goes. Hoon Hao deck is what you want. And then, if you are on a school that does need P-Serve, the Dream Stalker decks from Wallaru are your best bet for that. The problem with P-Serve schools is that there's currently not a circle slot deck that gives P-Serve. So you kind of just have to rock with the Stalker decks because you can socket an extra health jewel in them, and that'll really increase your health a lot, and that is really important, as I mentioned before. But pip conversion, it is a very important stat if you're an ice or a life or a balance, and the Stalker deck is your best bet there. So that is pretty much the best gear setup for every single school. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of raid gear. 4 depending on school, but it's a lot of raid gear. Yeah, and yeah, that's how it is. But this is the best gear for max level PvP, depending on your school. And yeah, it's a grind. It's a massive barrier to entry, but that's just what it is. That is all of the best pieces of gear for max level PvP. So, thank y'all for watching. I've been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more. And I will see y'all later.